Welcome to Get It Managed. How to manage your rental portfolio in Excel, Part 2. In Part 1 of this series, we created this view in Excel. In this video, we will build additional sheets to track the performance of our portfolio by month. First, we'll add a taxed amount column to the sheet we created in Part 1. We will then use the current setup to add additional working sheets to our Excel workbook. Video links to Part 1, 3, 4, and 5 will be listed in the description of this video as they become available. Part 1 is also linked in the top right-hand corner of this video. As a rule of thumb, we will list all expenses in our portfolio as negative numbers. Tax amounts may vary on a yearly basis. It is recommended that you update your records annually for an accurate estimate on expenses. All tax amounts for each property are listed or available on their corresponding county websites. Keep in mind that the taxes for your properties may not all be in the same county, and they may not all be due on the same month. Now that we have created a column for the tax amount, we will add a total cell at the bottom using the sum function. I find it easier to separate city and state from the property address because I manage properties in different states, but these columns are totally optional and you can skip if you'd like. For the purposes of this video, I will not be typing the city and state for each of the properties. As you can see, the property address is formatted to property number 1 through 25. In this case, I will just write city and state and format those all the way to the bottom. Then we're going to rename the current sheet rentals. And we're going to insert a blank sheet to the right and call it January. We're going to go back to rentals and we're going to copy our property address. Keep in mind the sheet rentals is our current state. So you would want to do this at the end of the month for each of the months so that you can keep proper records. Then we're going to copy the stage at the end of the month for January and we're going to paste it right next to our property address. Then we're going to add some additional headings like rent income, repairs, one for utilities, insurance, PM fees, which stands for property management, third-party management fees. If you do have third-party management companies doing the management of your portfolio here, we're going to add one for taxes, one for balance. We're going to add one for notes, and then one final one for PRI, which is potential rent income. Then we're going to format our title cells to match what we already have. And we're going to align our title row in the middle of the cell. Then we're going to format columns C through J to have an outline and C through I to be in the accounting format. Then we're going to expand our notes here to have more space and our balance to give it space, and any of the stages that are not occupied, we're going to add zeros as a rent income. And any of the occupied ones, we're going to start listing any income that we actually received from each of our tenants. I add all income at the end of the month because I have a property manager, but you can add these as you receive funds. We're then going to add a total cell at the bottom of the rent income column and drag that across to the other categories so we have totals and expenses as well. Since taxes are due in the month of January, we will go to our rental sheet and copy the taxed amount column and paste it into our January sheet under taxes. We will then add a total using the sum function under balance for each of our properties. We're going to drag that all the way down so that it does it for all of our properties. And then we're going to go in and add all of our expenses for all of our properties during the month of January. Once you have added all of your expenses, we're going to click on all of the cells here and we're going to do some conditional formatting, create a new rule. For cells that contain blanks, I like to completely fill out all of my sheets just to double check that I didn't miss any. We're going to select just a red color, and we're going to custom that color so that it's not so bright. We're going to click OK on our settings, and this will highlight any of our empty cells. That way I go back and make sure and double check that I didn't miss any details. Now that we have filled out all of our expenses, yes, I left the PM fees blank, FYI, we will move on to track our PRI percentages to measure our performance for January. We're going to go back to our rental sheets, and we're going to get this total under the target rent column for $20,403. We're going to copy that number into our PRI cell here. We're going to do some accounting formatting, make sure it's in the middle of our cell. And then we're going to format our percentage. In the cell right next to it, we're going to do the equal sign, and we're going to take our actual rent income we received divided by our new PRI number, which is L1. Now we're going to format our cell into a percentage, and we're going to get it nice and centered on our cell, and I do want this to be a little bit bigger. Then we're going to go into conditional formatting, and we're going to give ourselves some rules. So anything greater than an 85, we want that to be green for a green PIR month. Any cell less than 70%, we want that to be a red PIR month. And then any cell that's in between that 70 and 85% would be a yellow PIR month. Now, my formatting didn't work. If this happens to you, you want to go to Manage Rules, and then you want to go into the specific rule, and then you're going to click Edit Rule at the top here. And I'm going to add the percentage at the end of each of my values here so that I can start working. And I'm going to edit each one of those so that it translates well into my rules. As you can see, we did have a yellow month for January. This means that out of all of the rent that we could have collected, we only collected 75% of it. Now we're going to make a copy of our sheet so that we can translate this into the following months. And we're going to rename that February. I am going to delete all of the taxes expenses since those are only to happen in January, and I'm going to drag that all the way down. And then let's say that our pre-leased property number 1 here went from pre-leased to occupied in the month of February. We would change that stage here in our February sheet, and we would add the rent income that we did receive. And let's say that our property number 24 went to vacant rent ready, and I'm going to just adjust some of these expenses. Let's say we didn't have any in the month of February for these properties. And I'm going to change property number 2 to pre-leased. I'm going to finish editing some expenses, and now notice in February we're 80% PRI. A change from January, we only did 75, and in February we went to 80%. So there was a 5% improvement in the portfolio from one month to the other by renting one. Then we're going to go back to our rental sheet, and we're going to add 2 fields here. We're going to add our potential rent income percentage. This will provide a prediction of PRI percentage as of today. Keep in mind that the PRI in this rental sheet is based on the current rent determined by the occupancy status on each of the properties. To get actual rent received PRI percentages during any given month, you can go to the desired month sheet. In part 3 of this series, we will create an additional sheet to track these financials by year. Now we can see that although our occupancy percentage is at 80%, we're actually only collecting 75% of the rent that we could collect. If we were to change any of these stages or any information in a rental sheet, our graphs and our percentages will automatically update. That completes our part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for parts 3, 4, and 5.